Okay. So, hello everybody. Good morning, good afternoon, depending on where you are in the world. I'm Benjamin Zhang, International Relations Manager at PVTIME. First off, on behalf of PVTIME and our co-organizers, JinkoSolar, Huawei, and BayWa RE Solar Energy Systems, thank you for joining us for PVTIME's English webinar, German PV Market COVID-19 Update. It goes without saying that the transmission of COVID-19 on a global scale has certainly made 2020 a tumultuous year for everyone. COVID-19 has heavily affected the way we work, live, and interact with each other, while also severely disturbing the global economy. Of course, the PV industry is no more immune to the COVID-19 emergency than any other sector, and the pandemic has certainly had unprecedented effects on the solar industry as operations, trade, supply chains of many solar operations are significantly disrupted. Joining us today, we have 3 PV industry veterans from differing solar operations offering their unique perspectives and sharing their views on the current state of the German PV market, as well as providing an outlook for the German PV market going forward. For those of us in attendance with questions, please submit them to the Q&A section at the bottom of the screen there, and our panelists will try our best to answer as many as we can at the end of today's webinar. So without further ado, to start things off, we have Head of Sales, Central Europe, Mr. Arda Kristaporyan of JinkoSolar. Mr. Kristaporyan has been a part of JinkoSolar's team since 2014. In 2019, he became the Head of Sales for Central Europe and has been responsible for overseeing the sales and business development activities in the DACH region. Mr. Kristaporyan, glad to have you with us today. Arda?
Yes, thank you, Benjamin, for kind introduction.
Thank you for joining us.
Let me share my screen. Is it okay now? Is it visible?
Just give it a few seconds. It should be. Yep. It's not just yet, but it will come up.
Okay. Okay. Good morning, everyone. Here is the content of my
just one moment.
presentation.
Just one moment. Hasn't loaded up just yet.
Okay. Okay.
Okay, there we go.
Okay. Here is the content of my presentation. I would like to begin with COVID-19 impact on global markets, then briefly mention on German market overview and the COVID impact, then industry trends, especially LCOE point of view, a little bit product portfolio and the module quality. Okay, so yes, I would like to begin with global impact on COVID-19 outbreak. And during Chinese New Year, when physically possible, and Chinese New Year break extended about a month, as you know, despite there was a high global demand. Very quickly, in 3 to 4 weeks later, China quickly recovers in record time and start production with huge backlog orders over gigawatts. It was extremely high, and our clients placed many extra orders under uncertainty to avoid supply shortage, because COVID-19 caused a shortage in EU and in February and the beginning of March, let's say. However, once production gets momentum back, then COVID-19 hits rest of the world and significantly cut with common several reasons like manpower, let's say authority permits, or project finance. It had direct impact on supply-demand balance and change market from seller to buyer. And we see crash in upstream afterwards. First, wafer and raw material prices dropped significantly, then module price hit the bottom line ever. Our clients have been enjoying this sharply falling price, of course, but the decline came faster and greater than expected. And which made our lives quite difficult, but gave us a good indication about selecting right partners under difficult circumstances. Although it's an economy of scale, I still don't know what will be the bottom line of the module price, because raw material like glass, aluminum frame, etc. has cost itself. Maybe in the near future, we completely see a different technology than today. Despite this market fluctuation in price fluctuation in short time, market information and keep close communication with our clients. Thanks to our efficient coordination capability, with most of the contracts fulfilled smoothly. Our annual target was approximately 20 gigawatt for 2020 and still remain unchanged, although demand was slightly cut. 3.4 gigawatt was globally shipped in Q1, and which was a great number considering almost 1 month of production. Q2 will be even better, and Q3, Q4 will be much better because Chinese demand just kicks in as Chinese government stimulates PV installations to cover the economical drop in economical growth, and most of the delayed projects will be installed in the second half of the year. And in the recent weeks, we see first signal of this, and globally prices are increasing. Cell shortage and raw material price increase became visible since last week. The main conclusion that I would say a strong increase in demand for second half of the year. So the question is how long these prices will fall, continue, and when will oversupply stop? I would say it already started since 2 weeks. Last week we see some wafer price increases, then cell and raw materials, plus this week as well. So it will go on. So everyone should be careful of supply constraint for the rest of the year. Pandemic accelerating removal of outdated capacity. Pandemic industry players to expand market share, meaning after several years of expectation, it seems that we will see consolidation in top 6 tier 1 players will get stagnant their position and have a big gap from other manufacturers. It's not easy for tier 2 and tier 3 players to follow recent technological developments quick enough. We also spend a big effort and time for R&D and even during pandemic, and offers new products into the market. I will give you more explanation in my follow-up. Is cancellation of events. PV industry used to have conferences, trainings, and exhibitions, especially JinkoSolar Munich, which was the most important event from my point of view. And I sad to miss this year. And during this quarantine period, we arranged many webinars, online trainings, and to educate our team and also our clients and their sales team as well. And we use very actively, much more than before. We launched new products but couldn't present physically in anywhere. And in experience and virtual communication challenges. I was not imagining this before pandemic, but this hit our life. Let me go for second one. Yes, I would like to now talk about German market in particular, COVID-19. The fear of impact of COVID-19 was more than the actual impact. There were delays on projects because of several reasons, like local authorities were off, held city council meetings, and didn't allow to complete all permissions to begin installations. Plus, manpower were harder to find and more expensive to build the projects, especially for large-scale utility projects. Also, commercial projects between 40 to 700 kilowatt were postponed or cancelled because for financial reasons, companies facing some recession. And also residential projects cancelled because house owners don't want to see people around the roofs. And I guess this is the most affected segment with COVID-19. In general, I will say COVID-19 was not too big as imagined, and it was manageable impact on German market. However, the 52 gigawatt cap was more, and it hits the market in Q2 especially, which is the industry peak quarter. It was slower this year due to this 52 gigawatt cap. Although expectation of removing the cap is high enough, but many players hesitate to plan properly. Let's talk about a little bit now on numbers. In general, Q1 shipments in total about 938 megawatt for new installations in Germany, which was in last quarter Q4 2019 more or less same, 986 megawatt. Expectation of whole year is around 4 to 4.5 gigawatt. We finally see corporate PPA became visible, and about 50 megawatt is already in operation, which is quite shame. We expect to see more, but COVID-19 has negative effect on electricity prices, so PPA agreements now are a little bit holding pattern. But we expect from 2022 a big development in this segment as well. Also, almost about a year ago, I guess Bavaria launched the storage subsidy, and there were more than 20,000 applications in first year. And putting PV modules will be obligation on new buildings in that state. I guess from 2022, it could take effect, and first for commercial and then even private new buildings will have it. According to various sources, the expectation of next year is around 6 to 7 gigawatt, and for cumulative plan is around 100 gigawatt by 2030. Minimum 5 gigawatts every year in next decade. My personal expectation is even more. For us, as over 30% share in our entire EU shipment, and I would like to talk about a little bit on our shipment numbers. So in Q1, we ship around 120 megawatt considering COVID-19 impact, and whole year expectation is 750 megawatt, which is approximately 20% market share and align our global sales strategy. Our ambitious target is to get minimum 25% from 2021 onwards. And in here below, over right-hand side chart, you see market segments. This is for Q1 installations in Germany, and bigger shares belongs to big commercial applications. We divided German market into 3 segments, and the third one is investors utilities. And we have custom German market into 3 segments, and the EPCs for this. New industry trends, and which is LCOE. LCOE is levelized cost of electricity plus OPEX divided by produce energy over lifetime kilowatt hour. It leads manufacturers to introduce alternative technologies like N-type and bifacial as well. And as you see in the graph, and bifacial and N-type cells ratios are increasing slightly every year. There's a growth and new competition on power and efficiency side without oversizing module dimension. New era is even plus 500 watt modules, and such quick transition makes anxious some of the big EPC players, because it's not the best procurement and engineering exercise yet. And bottom you shows the efficiency history, where today we could reach about 21.6% by having 530 watt modules, which is called Tiger Pro in our portfolio. We introduce a bigger module in 2019 with 158.75 millimeter size called Cheetah. It was up to 410 watt modules, as you see, which was the highest efficiency and success story in the market. But then during these 18 months, industry introduced first 450 and then 500 watt modules based on different wafer sizes. It started with 163, 166 millimeter, then go to 182, and even now 210 millimeter wafers. It's very trendy. And recently, top 3 tier 1 module makers, including us, settled down and on a particular wafer size, which is 182 millimeter, to make an industry new standard. I guess it was a strategic and crucial decision to allow investors and clients to have alternatives. 182 millimeter wafer called Tiger Pro in our portfolio, as you see here. And in cell production, this Tiger modules 163.75, compatible with what recently installed major production equipment. Like equipments are acceptable both technically and economically, and it allows to develop on this path. I will give you more explanation in next slide about Tiger technology, but it is only on power and efficiency side instead of price. Yeah, here you see advantages of using Tiger Pro modules is higher power density and outstanding temperature coefficient and better open circuit voltage. At significant, is the installation time and with minimal. So in terms of LCOE, yes. Now I would like to talk about product portfolio for our coming quarters in Germany on Tiger modules, P-type and N-type, both monofacial and bifacial versions combination. And Tiger Pro is only for utility. And Tiger technology offer improving cell efficiencies, optimizing module production processes, and increasing module conversion efficiency. The key technical feature is tiling ribbon in this technology. And through that, it increases power and generation density. As I told, it was very, very important. The module can generate more electricity per unit area It eliminates the cell gap. Here, as you see, it eliminates the cell gap in vertical direction, and in a future is styling ribbon touch each other cells vertically in a reliable way by avoiding cracks on overlap area. Spatial adhesive like EVA fills overlapping region that gives excellent buffering of cut and multi-busbar features to boost the efficiency, as you see here. It reduces internal loss together with multi-busbar features. For bifacial model for utility scale projects, we suggest more transparent backsheet because it boosts the IRR by lowering MBOS logistic and OPEX costs. Reduces the weight about 20% by using transparent backsheet compared to glass, and it gives better performance at phobic surface, enables to clean the surface easier, which helps for lower OPEX. Yes, I briefly also want to talk about our N-type modules, which is different technology than industry standard P-types. P-type is a boron dope, but N-type is phosphorus dope. Technology, it was not cost effective before, but after recent developments in technology and scale, it was become reasonable. We could apply better warranties with N-type modules because it's LID free technology. It means that benefits in terms of energy production is much higher than thanks to its lower degradation rate than P-type module. So its initial cost is negligible over lifetime. And for next years, I strongly believe that N-type, both monofacial and even bifacial versions will be the most preferred module type for even utility scale projects. But for this year and next year, our limited N-type production capacity, which is only 800 megawatt per year, as I already mentioned, our capacity is about we use N-type. It is booked for distribution business only, in particular EU, especially for residential. This N-type all black products is a niche product where we can give a 25 years product warranty compared to actually it's only 15 years, but this is the higher module efficiency, what we can reach about over 20% with all black appearance for residential application. Big interest in distribution markets like Netherlands and Germany. I want to mention the importance of bill of material. As you know, physical appearance of modules are more or less the same, but bill of material matters the quality of modules. We are proud of using premium bill of materials in our modules, and it brings high quality standard and over performance at field. And of course, this gives us customers example. This anti-reflection coating on glass. This is a sandwich structure of module, as you probably know. And anti-coating reduces by 4%. Anti-soiling coating reduces the soiling effect of 4%. Again, you can save about 10% saving of operation and maintenance. Also for transparent backsheet, as already mentioned, reduce the weight and compared to glass, and it gives you. And also here the frame size, you see wall thickness increased about 20% and frame cavity by 50%, which also from 40 to 30 millimeters. This allows you to have logistic saving, meaning that in same container we can have 20% more modules in one container. That's it from my side.
Wonderful. Thank you, Arda. Thanks, sir. And I'm sure Jinko will have another great year as you had for the past 4 there. And for our next guest, we have Mr. Kenneth Marcel Frey from Huawei, who will be providing us with an update on the German inverters market, as well as an overview of Huawei's business operations during the pandemic. Mr. Frey began his career at Huawei as an account manager in 2013 and took on the role of director of DACH region PV inverters in 2015. This year, Mr. Frey became the executive director for Huawei's Germany Enterprise Digital Energy Business Department. Mr. Frey, thanks again for joining us today. Stage is all yours, my friend.
Thanks, Benjamin, for the introduction and having me here. So I'll just share my screen and start right with the presentation. Just bear with me for a second. All right. I hope everybody can see my screen now. Okay, seems so. Yeah, so thanks already to Arda for giving, I think, the brief overview about the German-speaking market, particularly Germany, and the impact which COVID-19 has had on the PV market in general. I think the information which he has shared to us is actually quite similar from what we have seen on the market, that manufacturing in China, which is the case for our inverters as well. Some of our competitors, and of course a big part of the modules, that there has been a significant impact in the production in February, which impacted to a certain degree the supply. Seen is a certain impact in reduction of installations, not significant. We were expecting which 4 to 5 weeks is basically the market going back to a normal situation. So what I will be going into in my presentation is just and the impact of COVID-19 on Huawei itself, specifically, of course, for the PV market, but also on a general level, what impact has COVID-19 had on Huawei, and what has Huawei been trying to do also in other segments to facilitate an easier coping with the whole situation, enabling our partners and the market to operate efficiently, both go into the impact of our inverter product during COVID. And I'll just give a brief introduction towards the new product, which despite COVID-19, we are now launching or about the first half year, and that we have been cooperating. So we have been working in the European market and trying according to the needs in the current situation. I think we've been working also with our suppliers, so that has been also one of the main challenges, trying to get the supply in despite the difficult situation. So a lot of our suppliers are also produced to and finalize the inverters. So task of companies working together and to make it easier for the end customers, for the installers to still be able to access the Huawei is still active in more than 170 countries. The energy part is a growing segment, a small part, but steadily and the fastest growing one. Huawei has about more than half of the employees in R&D. Continue. You can see here basically that in terms of investment on R&D, we're up at the top along with a lot of the big companies, and that more than 10% of the revenue is going into R&D, which is reflected, of course, in the energy segment and specifically into the PV segment as well. So in terms of availability, as a lot of people know, we are offering purely string inverters. So we are not active in the central inverter market. And we have been deploying on all markets and specifically into the German-speaking market string inverters, which of course enhances availability. On the other hand, we have seen, let's say, certain impacts looking at the split of residential, commercial, and without earlier one of which we have seen in situ and the end consumers were maybe doing a new installation that urgently, while we saw that the big commercial and utility scale systems continued as planned, of course with certain delays as well. But in Germany, those delays were not as significant as maybe in Spain, Italy, and in other countries where big utility scale systems were significantly delayed in the deployment due to safety standards. A lot of restrictions being put in place, one-off installation in Spain, where due to new health and safety regulations, they couldn't go on the supply chain with every to the new situation. So what we have been working on was in the ICT area, so enabling communication. So tried to provide more comprehensive tools for remote of 5G in a lot of countries, connections, a big part was taking the computing to a cloud for COVID-19 broke out. Also the consultation question. So actually, especially for the code more remote regions on more detailed tasks. What we're seeing is that screening can be done to a certain degree, also remotely controlling and countries have been pushing, trying how to say it, remote with different hospitals and universities, especially for our colleagues in China. So you can see here some examples. Of course, we have the classic conferencing systems, which Huawei is to enable easier communication. Hospitals where experts are consulting the doctor at site who have to do the I think this is basically just a summary to the 5G network, so that yeah, so then we come to the PV segment. What is not just plopped up this year, but the control for more and more parts of the PV system. One part of that is, of course, control the tracking system, sense, stored production of inverters. So I would say we were maybe not in March, but we were back close to our suppliers. Impact on their production, but so engineers, but I think we managed to implement that quite quickly, and everything worked out well with the collaboration of our customers. Yeah, I think in all, of course, a lot of us are still office is in a lot of operations, and we have rotating to ensure safety and health for both. Our situation is that digitalization will their employees to a certain degree to work more remotely, also in the future, even if COVID-19 finally ceases. Is a lot of marketing, as I must together with our partners and BayWa in the German region, or showrooms in both Nuremberg and China for any installers or other people. It's basically gone into a digital method, free of charge. So for those of you installing PV systems at the supplier, basically we're offering our free at the moment to enable everyone traveling unnecessarily to site. Yeah. And then the last one, which I mentioned earlier already, this by COVID-19 we had a delay. We would have been faster without it. I think there have been impacts, a lot of changes in the style of working of the people, and I think coming back, as I said, digital products is key, and I think of rolling out the 5G network on site maintenance, etc.
Hello. I think I'm a little bit behind on my end here. Can everybody hear me? Hello.
Yep.
Okay, perfect. Thank you. Thank you, Kenny, for the great presentation there.
We can hear you.
Great. And now, for our final presentation today, we have Mr. Alexander Schütt, Managing Director of BayWa RE Solar Energy Systems, a leading global renewable energy developer, service provider, wholesaler, and energy solutions provider. Mr. Schütt will be discussing the recent removal of the 52 gigawatt cap in Germany, as well as the impact of COVID-19 on the German PV market from the perspective of distributor and developer. Thank you, Alexander. Take it away for us.
Okay. Also from my side, a warm welcome. Let me see if I can share the screen. I hope you can see it now. You can. I think you should see the presentation now. I will.
Yes, sir.
Go over from my side. Yeah, the COVID-19. The COVID-19 implications on the German, particular also the that was at least in place our mother company system where I'm responsible for Austria, Poland, and Scandinavia, and then we'll have a look of on the German PV market. Important things to decide for a certain product, expected trends, drivers, and challenges in the industry. Let's put it this way. First, we are actually a subsidiary of, you can see it on the right hand, RE, and is close to 100 years old. Within BayWa, in about 2 billion euros in turnover, 1,400 employees, and are located in more than 20. It's also about the German solar thing, next year, 30 years, always in the field of locations in Germany. Is a head southwest of Germany. Its offices in Tübingen, obviously in offices outside of Germany, in Austria, of our customers, which are mainly the installers. What are the challenges in the PV market in Germany? I think that's basically all over the world. Starting now, or is already, remember, I'm already quite a bit in the industry and feeding it into the grid. Having a power generation and power conversion when power needs to be used, and obviously monitoring systems. For that one, a more holistic approach than we used to have, like solar trade. We do as well for the solution in order to have a more holistic approach, and also storage system, also electrical side to the heat for e-mobility, wall chargers for cars, and obviously components. Parts we do offer solutions, and let's have a brief outlook on the main headline. Is I think the German market is pretty much back to normal. Like Arda says, there were a few sites where some people said for a few weeks, oh, it would be nice if Germany did have full order books of several months, 3 months, 4 months, 5 an issue for them, even if a customer's options where the installers were still 2 or 3 or 4 weeks not in my building less. I think the German market wasn't, and EPCs were capable of working. And I think we can see that also in the numbers of new and you will see it. Do expect for even though there was a COVID crisis, the distributor has the product in the web, send a lot of people on a notice or reduced working hours, so that everything is basically back to normal, and we can work on the commercial segment. Had actually a much bigger impact of new projects where maybe we actually see commercials because of the fear of new orders. Yes, there were didn't want to give the cap that we could run into, but for the 52 gigawatt cap would be no reason. That's true. I would say in Q2 this year. For the cap removal, the cap is very important for the German market. Without the removal, I would say they would have collapsed, in particular, where you simply are still that would have affected the German much, but I would have not been surprised at least 50%. Now I heard a few times in the past weeks, since the cap is gone, that one I really don't see. It's just we avoid having right now the market the way it was working the last 6 market. We will continue to have new installations. What will be an issue that since we are installations this year, the new PV systems will receive high degression % in Germany, and that will affect the profitability. Not have a high self-consumption rate. This is due to the fact in the German law we have implemented, which is the goal at this point of time, 2.5 gigawatt. But we are more in the area of bringing the new installations down and to make it less profitable. And then, and in the next remaining feed-in tariff is going to hurt the profitability for new PV systems. A 50 kilowatt peak will continue last auction the average cents per kilo in a part of the auction. Benjamin had that question, and even though the end consumer is at the end of the day paying on the PV systems, and the solutions that are coming from the installers and has on the solution, and price and value of the product is important. Second, availability. When you're dealing with smaller systems. I remember I ordered books full for 3 PV system that will be installed and get that product in November, because they inverter XY and module available. Availability for those Four hours later, somebody calls back from the hotline, because then he's not at the construction site anymore. He needs to have the answers then, if possible, right away, so that he can solve it when he's at the PV system. So a good technical support is really crucial. And I've seen over years and decades that I'm in this industry, companies failing, even though they have a good product, they were failing because of the technical support. So this is really important. And I will go to the fifth point from the bottom, credit limits of the supplier. Installers in Germany certainly expect also to receive a certain credit line from where they buy the product. It could be 20,000, could be 50,000, maybe 100,000, depending on the company. They do expect a certain credit limit where they get the product and they have to pay later in 10 days, in 20 days, in 30 days after the shipment. What certainly helps is a brand name for the end customer. That certainly helps, but only a very few brands in the industry, like Huawei, I think do have the advantage that the end customer knows the brand. But that certainly is of advantage towards the end customer. And last but not least, and I think we would have had that slide here 5 years ago, logistical services would have not been on that list, but that part is becoming more and more important, logistics services for the installer. They want to have one shipment. They want to have the one-stop source where they can buy. They want to buy with one source, modules, inverter, storage system, mounting structure, cable, connector, everything that they need. One phone call or one web shop and one shipment that is coming to the construction site. 10 years ago, different. They were buying modules with that manufacturer. They were buying inverters with a different manufacturer. That has changed quite a bit over the last years. And today it's more important to have, and you see that trend over the years clearly, one-stop source where they can buy everything and where they also get everything in one shipment. Also, delivering straight to the construction site. I've mentioned we're doing over 65,000 shipments this year. More than 50% will go straight to the construction site somewhere in Germany, Austria, or Poland. And not the 24-hour delivery is important. It's important to be on time. So when the installer says, I need to have it on Tuesday next week, that it will be there on Tuesday next week. Not on Monday, because he's not there on Monday, and not on Wednesday, because on Tuesday he's there with his 2 or 3 or 4 employees to do the work on the construction site. So this part, the logistical service, I'm also convinced that this is becoming, the cheaper the products are becoming, and more important to have a good logistics service that we all need to offer to the installers. Expected trends, drivers, and challenges. Trends. In Germany, residential storage systems are, I've been standing, as it says here, becoming standard. I think they are standard. PV systems smaller than 10 kilowatt peak are like 60–70% already installed with storage systems. So that is a clear trend, and I think most countries in this world will follow sooner or later. And also high efficiency modules are clearly a trend that is not going to go away, in particular in countries like Germany where you have high labor costs. It is very important to have modules with a high efficiency. These are certainly trends that we do see and that will continue. Drivers. Self-consumption is a huge driver in the German end consumer market. Doesn't matter if we're looking at the residential sector or the commercial sector. Self-consumption is the main driver that we have these days, and that is very important also to keep. Second big driver, within the society here, we have a trend that everything should become more sustainable, environmentally friendly. So you have that trend where people say, I want to produce my own PV, my own electricity via a PV system, and I can store it. So at nighttime, I can use my own electricity as well. Or even I have my electrical car and I can fuel my car with the electricity that I have from my PV system. That is a trend, and that is going to give us wind from behind in the PV industry, certainly, because that is the most important energy source, renewable energy source that end customer can do themselves. Challenges. We need a new installation target within the German EEG law. I mentioned it earlier on. We do have currently a 2.5 gigawatt target in there. And since we're exceeding it quite a bit this year, there will be very low tariffs, feed-in tariffs for next year and the day after, and the years after. So there will be a new novel, a new EEG in the second half of the year that will be done. And I hope that we as the industry can increase and can uplift this target from currently 2.5 gigawatt to 5 to 10. To be realistic, it would be great with the current government that we have if we could reach 5 gigawatt. If Germany really wants to achieve the 2030 goal of Paris, we would need 10 or 12 gigawatt for the next 10 years every year of PV installations in order to reach that goal. Second challenge that we have is that self-consumption as the main driver at this point of time needs to be strengthened and even further supported. And it is not everybody in the industry, in particular not some of the very old players that are in the traditional field of energy, have not given up to had not given up the fight to, well, hinder us to bring more renewable energy into the grid. So there are from certain associations approaches to take away self-consumption, and that would be not good since it is at this point of time the major driver. So we need to support the self-consumption and actually, yeah, that is very important to keep and to improve it and support, to improve it even. And last but not least, in Germany, we do have not enough installation capacities. We do not have enough installers. That's why they have also a backlog of 3 to 6 months of orders in their order books. There are simply not enough installers. And to a certain extent, that will hinder us to increase the market in Germany, in particular on the smaller installations in the residential field. I'm not too much afraid in utility scales and commercial scale, but in particular on the residential side, having not enough installation capacity is hindering the German PV market. Let's talk about pricing. In Q2, we actually saw a slight price increase from the installer towards the end customer. A minor one, but we saw it that there is a slight price increase that we had. If we look a little bit further back within the last 2 years, we saw a slight price decrease of 2 to 10%, depending on the size of the installation. Certainly on the bigger PV systems, utility scale, commercial scale, more than on the residential side. On the residential side, not much has moved price-wise over the last 2 years. And I think we'll see that also in the future, due to the lack of installers and due to the fact that the part of hardware is becoming smaller and smaller within the PV system. I don't think that you see price decreases that the installer is giving it one-to-one to the end customer. I think they will always try to keep a little bit for themselves. Nevertheless, I think for the German market, it's not really bad because it's still a good business also for the end consumer to install a PV system. And whenever there's good money that the installer can earn, it's also attracts more and new installers into the market, which we obviously also need. And last but not least, basically said that already, the removal of the cap was extremely important. Without the removal, the German market, I think, would have collapsed. Now, without the cap, We are going again towards 300 to 450 megawatt per month of new installations. But there are still more political issues like the new EEG that we're facing and that we need to solve in order for the German market to be successful and to do even more than the expected 5 gigawatts of this year. That's so far. That's it from my side. Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you, Alex. Quite informative and thought-provoking presentation there from you. That about concludes the presentation portion of today's webinar, friends. We will now be taking questions put forth by the audience throughout, and also feel free to submit them as we go along as well if you haven't had a chance to do so. So, gentlemen, let's go to the Q&A tab. Let's see what we have here. So earlier, a audience member posted a question regarding the GCL accident recently, which affected the global polycrystalline production capacity, which is lost about 10%. So Arda, could you talk a little bit about that? How fast can the industry recover from this loss of capacity?
Yes, it's a good question. Yes, GCL is as silicon manufacturer, and after this fire, also the other silicon manufacturers will be investigated. This could lead and supply shortage and price increase for sure. But independent from that, since last 2 weeks, we also see and wafer and cell price are increasing slightly, about 10 to 15%. So direct or indirect, yes, there would be an impact of this event, let's say.
Okay. And actually, while you're here, someone asked about the Tiger Pro bifacial's availability in the market right now. And I think your colleague Maria touched on that, but maybe not everyone got a chance to read it. So maybe you can enlighten us a little bit on that.
Yes, Tiger Pro was just recently released, and it's a new product, and it will be available from Q4 onwards.
Q4 hours, okay. I hope that answers the question. I forgot who asked in the audience there. Also, a question from Belsham here for Mr. Kenneth. Does Huawei have any plans for central inverters?
Yeah, I think the answer for that is quite simple. It's a no, for two simple reasons. I think if you look at the CapEx point of view, the bigger string inverters have gotten quite close to central inverter pricing. They have already reached quite a significant size, and I think another one of the advantages which central inverters held in the past of having integrated transformer station has also been matched, in particular for our string inverter solutions, by us starting to offer out smart transformer stations in a lot of the markets. So basically having the complete package there. So we don't see any necessity to bring out central inverters for the future.
Okay, thank you. Next question here. Could you guys touch upon the integrated photovoltaics development in Germany? I'm quite curious about that. This is a question for myself and my team here at PVTIME.
Yeah, I could say a few words about it. I think, at least for the German market, it is a niche market. You're in a single-digit percentage of the market, and I don't believe that in 10 years we'll talk about two-digit percentage. I think it's going to stay a niche market. I think there are very nice PV systems out there. They're also looking very nice and very good looking without needing to touch the shingles of the roof. There are other markets. I know Switzerland, for example, they are pretty big in roof integrated PV systems, but in Germany it's a niche market, and I think it will stay a niche market, my opinion.
Okay. While we're on the topic of PV systems and things, can you talk about the perception of PV power plants, PV systems among the general German population for us?
It has a very positive very positive perception in the population. Certainly, there's a little differentiation between systems that are on the roof that are smaller and you can't see them as much. They have like a very, very high positive reception. And there's a little bit more of skepticism of big ground-mounted PV systems. Nevertheless, we're still in a much better shape than, for example, wind power plants. There you have quite a bit of problems within the general population. But overall, photovoltaic has a very good reputation and very good perception within the German society.
Okay, yeah, that definitely. I think German people are models for PV adoption, and I hope more people around the globe we eventually reach this sort of attitude as well. From I think Dr. F here in our audience. Hi, Alexander. What's your sales split with components, if I'm understanding that correctly?
I assume he means how much modules and inverters and mounting structures we're selling around about. On a global level, we'll hit about 2.x gigawatt of inverters this year, and on the module side, we're in the area of 1.3 gigawatt of modules that we will sell this year. For the German entity alone, we're in the area of about 300 to 330 megawatt of modules and about 500 to 550 megawatt of inverters. Mounting structure in Germany, about 400 to 500, that's a little bit megawatts. That's a little bit more difficult to say because you not always know what kind of module is attached to the mounting structure.
Okay, next one here from the audience. Could we talk about whether or not, if there's any uncertainty relating to whether or not a new cap will be put into place?
Yeah, I think we had this discussion in the German market a lot of times. Alex already touched on this subject earlier. So I think from all our sides, there is no doubt that there will be no new cap. After this cap has just been removed recently, I think what we need to pay attention to, and I think Alex already highlighted this quite nicely in his presentation, is to make sure that there are no new restrictions imposed, whether it be on self-consumption or other kind of restrictions. And I think that is a key task which the industry needs to fight for, which the BSW is doing very frequently, where a lot of the big players and the big suppliers and distributors are active. So all of us in a joint cooperation there are, of course, I think there has been no raise, and yeah, it will definitely not be in the form of a cap. So much is clear, and the rest, of course, we need to wait and see.
Okay, great. I guess this next question sort of ties into this. Perhaps, gentlemen, you could add in something, or maybe not if we have already touched upon it. We talked about how the EEG, the German Renewable Energy Sources Act, needs to be amended to include 5 to 10 gigawatts of annual installations. Has there been any signs or talks of this happening in the near future?
Yes, there are. There are talks that they are starting right now, and different associations and players are giving suggestions how the new EEG should look like. That's an open topic, and it will be decided in the next 6 months how the new EEG, how that one will be looking at. And you see very different suggestions. On one side, on one spectrum, you see people attacking the self-consumption, want to take away the self-consumption, which would be tremendously bad. And then on the other hand, you have people that want like 10, 15 gigawatt of new installations. They want to make sure that self-consumption is completely free from any kind of taxes or anything. So you have very extreme points. And at the end of the day, politics will decide how the new EEG will look like. And all of us in the industry will need to do their best job in order to influence it in a way that it's pro-photovoltaic, and that we will have hopefully rather 10 gigawatt of new installations than only 5. But all that will happen within the next 6 months. And if we look a little bit further, maybe I'll give an outlook on that one as well. In autumn 2021, there will be new elections in Germany, and with a new government, and at this point of time, I think the likelihood would be relatively high that the Green Party would be involved in a government like this as well. I think with a new government, we could expect then also a more aggressive, proactive, and with high installation numbers EEG for the year 2022. I'm not sure if they could start in January 22, but let's say summer 22 or maybe January 23. But the elections will show, and that will be in autumn next year.
Okay, that's an awesome answer, Alex. Thank you. And I think, needless to say, if we want to reach the 2030 goals, it definitely needs to be amended. I think this question from Dr. F, again, not only applies to Alex, but maybe to the other people as well. We talked about logistics during times of COVID-19. His question is, what importance has digital distribution, web shops, affected your strategy? He says we didn't quite talk about it on our preference list. He believes it's a fast-growing sales channel, and I think maybe perhaps you guys could give us an answer on this one too.
If I may add, he's absolutely right. And yes, it's not mentioned on there, but he's absolutely right. It's a must-have. You need, as a distributor, you need to be capable of offering your customers to see products via the web shop. Documentation, availability, pricing, being able to order when you do a configuration of a PV system, that it goes from the configurator straight into the web shop where you can order the product and see the availability. Absolutely, that's a must-have. That is, I compare it always with, I like my local bank that I have here, but if they wouldn't have an online banking system, I wouldn't be there anymore. It's a must-have, and I think in Germany all the distributors do have it, different kind of quality. But yes, it's becoming a more and more important part of distribution. You need to have a good web shop where the installer can get the most important information, price, availability, documentations to the product, also on Friday night or on Sunday when the salesperson is not there.
Okay. Another question from Samar Hassan in the audience. I believe he's probably talking about job opportunities in the PV or renewable energy sector for people from other countries. I'm not sure if this is an area of expertise for anybody, but I feel like I bring that up here. If anybody has anything to say about this, if I'm understanding this question correctly.
I think that's a difficult one to answer, so the answer would be quite vague. I think what you can see in general in the German industry is that you see a lot of nationalities working for German EPC companies, for German distribution companies. So I think, matter of fact, the PV industry, even in Germany, is quite international. So you will see a lot of Spanish, a lot of Italian, a lot of, I don't know, from all the countries in the Eastern European region, and a lot of Scandinavians active in Germany, living really in Germany, working for German solar companies. So I think we have that already. Of course, for European, it's easier to find a job within Germany in the PV sector. But I have also seen cases of Indian, of people from the Middle East, Africa region working in Germany and then learning German later on. So I wouldn't say it's a no. We see a lot of international people, especially in the big EPC companies in Germany.
Okay, great. I think that about covers all of the questions put forth. I am going to give the audience maybe 30 more seconds if you have anything else to add before we conclude today's webinar here. Does anybody have anything to say? You can raise your hand. I'll address directly. If not, I'm going to go on and send these gentlemen on their nice day here, if that's okay. So it looks like we've about covered everything. So let me just say a few more words here. Once again, obviously, on behalf of PVTIME, I'd like to thank you my panelists and the audience and our co-organizers for making this webinar possible. And I hope this is the first in a series of many to come for PVTIME. Most importantly though, we wish you success for your business operations, but more importantly, good health to you and your families during these difficult times. And I think Kenneth's quote put it quite nicely earlier on. I think this time will be remembered in human history is how we overcame this crisis as one, right? So hope you guys can all stay safe. And it's a shame that I won't be able to see my friends this year at the NEC in Shanghai next week. However, PVTIME will be present there. And for any of you in the audience right now, if you want to come by, drop by, say hello to me or to my team, we will be at booth 823 in Exhibit 6. So that about wraps up the webinar today, guys. Thank you very much once again to the audience and to my friends here, the panelists, as well as everybody that put in the effort to make this thing a successful one there. In particular, I'd like to thank Ms. Arda from Jinko. We got Ms. Sarah Lamb and from Huawei, as well as Simone from BayWa Solar Energy System. So thank you again, everybody, for coming. And I will be in touch after the presentation once I've communicated with all the panelists to see whether or not we would like to share the PPTs, and I will send them to you directly through my email. Okay, thanks again, everybody. Have a great afternoon or evening, wherever you are. Okay.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.